Louis looked good on paper. He had money from the allowance he received as a result of his father's successful baseball career. He was well-traveled and knowledgeable about business and investments. At times, she thought him to be a bit showy, but it was a minor negative when compared to his other positive traits. He spoke several languages, and as a former athlete, he viewed health and fitness with the same importance she did. He was tall and attractive, and ready to get married. Downright perfect, in fact. She really couldn't go wrong with him, and any woman would be lucky to have him shower attention on her. So why couldn't she stop thinking about Matthew? Maybe because he'd been her first and only lover. Having been a tomboy most of her life, and growing up under the thumb of a protective father, she'd never had much interest in or experience with men. As the only girl, she'd played sports with her father and brothers and was nothing like her more glamorous mother. Her mother was a former beauty queen. She'd been crowned Miss Puerto Rico, and her father loved to tell the story of how from the minute he saw her on television accepting the crown, he had decided right then and there to make her his wife. Over 30 years later, they were still happily married. She'd wanted a relationship like theirs, with the same level of love and passion. She'd found that level of intensity with Matthew, albeit one-sided, and now she wondered if she could ever enjoy a tepid relationship. Of course she could. Passion was overrated. All the excitement she experienced with Matthew had gotten her nowhere. She needed stability and a trustworthy man who wanted the same thing she did. Someone like Louis. He wanted a long-term relationship, a wife and children, none of which Matthew had been willing to offer. She couldn't let his re-entry into her life ruin her chances at a good, solid relationship. She slipped her hand from beneath Louis's and threaded her fingers between his. I do know how much you care about me. Please don't worry about Matthew. He's no threat to you. She smiled. Like Louis's father, Lorena's father had been a professional baseball player. He and Juan Diaz never played on the same team, but they'd become friends. At some point, her protective father had decided she and Juan's son made a good match, and both men arranged for their children to meet. You're right. I'm acting like a fool. Louis grinned and gave his meal his attention once more. He launched into an explanation about the purchase of property in another state, but she barely heard him. Her thoughts caught up in an unfair comparison between the two men. Louis was a bottle rocket. Matthew delivered full-blown fireworks that should be handled with caution to avoid getting burned. Because of that, he presented a danger to her heart and everything she thought she wanted from a man. He should come with a warning. The sign should be in big, bold, red block letters and say, "Here comes trouble."